Okay. Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Flores Higgins. I want to thank you very much for coming to this session. Let me tell you just a tiny little bit about myself. I am a CCL staff member, and I work at the headquarters in San Diego, California. I came to Citizens Climate Lobby in early 2011 when Marshall Saunders needed a temporary assistant while his regular assistant went on maternity leave. It's kind of a funny story, but so needless to say, after a day or two of helping Marshall Saunders with his emails, I figured out very quickly that this was an amazing organization in the budding stages, and there was no better place where I could put in my time and energy. So I joined staff in 2013, and this is the most amazing position to be in, and thank you for being here. And now I want to talk about you all, because you're special people too. If you came to this session, you're not a group leader, or you would have been in the group leader session, and you're not a total newbie, or you would be over in the Climate Advocate Workshop. So I'm guessing that we've got some seasoned volunteers here. Who has been to a regional conference this year? Awesome. Okay. How many of you have been to DC before? Great. This is great. This is exactly what I thought. Okay. Oh, let's see. And I wanted one other question. How many have worked at a tabling event? Excellent. And how about endorsements? Anybody seek endorsements this year? That's great. How did you do?
We had an endorsement, yeah.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Well, and endorsers were new this year, so that's excellent, and it's really taking off. Okay. I did have a few slides, but they're not here, and honestly, we can get by without them because we're going to be doing some practice skills anyway. So, apologies for that, but I think we'll be okay. Let's start with a quick overview of the history of this workshop. It's called Move Over Misconception. It was developed by from an idea of Ellie Sparks, and then Mark and Madeline worked together to really put it together. And the story goes that Ellie had been having meetings with the Farm Bureau person several times, and one day she was on her fourth or fifth meeting, and the person said to her, "Ellie, I don't like your cap and dividend." And she just kind of took a step back, because cap and dividend, all this time she'd been talking about fee and dividend. Where was he getting cap? Well, the short answer is he was getting it from his own head. And so that's what this workshop is about, is how do we get a person to be ready to hear what we have to say. Let's see. Yeah, okay, sorry, I got following. And okay, so what happens when you're talking with somebody? Many of us can get very worried about, do we really, are we going to be ready to respond to the kinds of questions they're going to ask? Do we have all the facts and figures right at the top of our tip of our tongue? And some of us might even have Skeptical Science app on our phone, and we're just ready to go bring up every answer to every denier question that could come up. And yet, we can't help it. We're so passionate about this cause. But we have a suggestion, and that is, instead of going straight into the facts and information, get to know the person a little bit better first, and get them to the point of curiosity. Okay. So people respond a lot better. For instance, this Farm Bureau person might have been expecting an attack because he didn't like her cap and dividend. Well, that's why we start our meetings first with appreciation, right? We go and we start our meetings telling the congressperson what it is we appreciate that they've done in office. And there's always something that they've done. And that's referred to, in the bios that you have, for your lobby meetings. And there's a great story that Ellie likes to tell about a team that they had a meeting with a staffer. They had really hoped for a face-to-face, but it wasn't going to happen. He had a conflict. So they were meeting with the staffer, and it was in one of those offices where they set you in a little kind of a cubby, and there's divider walls. And so they just opened up with an appreciation for what the congressman, it was a person from Arkansas, and he had really helped to protect an animal habitat, and they thanked him for that. And they hear this voice from the other side of the divider saying, well, thank you, I worked really hard on that. And lo and behold, the MOC had been there the whole time, and now that he didn't feel attacked, he came over and joined them for the whole rest of the meeting. So, we just can't say enough about how that really breaks the ice, makes it friendly, and sets a really positive tone for the meeting. So that's why we always start with appreciation. Okay, let's see. So how do you get them to ask you for information? We suggest that you draw out their own thinking first on climate change. Find out what their value is and connect with them on that value. And you find that out while you're listening to them. So when Ellie started this project, it was just an idea. She wasn't really sure. So she asked some volunteers to help her do some research on this topic. And so she asked them to find someone, perhaps a conservative, ask them if they would talk about CCL with them, and just that was the chance to draw out thinking on the topic. She said, instead of trying to talk a 50-50, each person, shoot for 90-10. Let that person do 90% of the talking. And this was based on the theory that by making this investment up front, then it would have payoff in terms of the receptivity when it became your turn to talk. The reports were really good, and there's this great letter that I'm going to read to you. Hi, Ellie. I had an opportunity to try out the Move Over Misconception approach last week. I contacted the chair of an environmental climate group's committee to find out what he and the state organization knew and thought about CCL's plan. It turns out that he is a big supporter of cap and trade. And apparently, based on previous conversations he had had with some CCL members, he expected me to attack cap and trade and try to convince him that fee and dividend is a better solution. As much as I wanted to defend CCL, I told him instead that I'd like to learn more about cap and trade and asked him to tell me what he liked about it. I also told him that I appreciated all the hard work he and others had put into cap and trade and all the good things that were happening as a result of it. I told him my understanding of the benefits and drawbacks to CAP and things that I had learned at a presentation at a regional conference. He listened attentively and was glad to elaborate on or perhaps correct some of the things I had learned. When I asked him about the applicability of cap and trade to other areas, he acknowledged that it might not work as well on a national or a global scale. We ended our conversation on good terms and agreed to continue it at a later date. I think this conversation would not have lasted very long, nor gone as well, had I felt compelled to score some talking points for CCL. I'm certain we would not have agreed to continue the discussion later on. I'll let you know if anything interesting happens when he and I speak again. Okay, so listening to that story, I'd like some feedback from you all. What do you think this volunteer did that made the conversation go so well? Yes?
I thought it was important that she wasn't just trying to get across those talking points.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to get those bullet points across. It's not like you're actually having a conversation. It's just like you're yelling numbers at them. And when people do that to me, it's just, I don't.
Yeah, she didn't do that. She didn't do that. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
She softened her agenda. She kind of let go of what the expectations was willing to be in receptive mode.
That is a really key point. Yes, thank you. Yes.
She showed that genuine curiosity about cap and trades, like actually expressing that she wanted to learn something, which is important.
Yes, did everyone hear that? Yeah, genuine curiosity.
Say that again.
Yeah, she just expressed genuine curiosity, so actually wanted to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, people like to talk about things that they're into, so.
Precisely. Yes, Sandy.
It sounds like this was a relationship building exercise. She wasn't in a rush.
Yes, yes.
There's more conversation later.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, one more.
She found a way to ask the question positively. What do you like about it?
I really liked that too. She asked the question positively. What do you like about cap and trade? So thank you very much. Okay, so, and just Madeline has a great summary in a nutshell. She says, one of the things that we really learn in this example is that it is worth taking the time to get a thorough airing of what the other person thinks and try not to respond point by point, just like you said. If you listen, it opens the door to more conversation. And I like what you said about being relaxed. She relaxed on her agenda. When you're relaxed, you're not going into that conversation planning to, answer point by point. Instead, you think, well, I'm going to come back later to that point, even though I don't agree with it. And so you being relaxed helps make the whole dynamic relaxed, because you're going to come back. You're building a relationship, just like Sandy said. So thank you. Madeline also had a fun family story to share as a good example. She grew up the youngest in her family, so when she wanted to say something, someone else would always jump in with their opinion and tell her all the things they knew that she didn't. She barely got to have her opinions or ideas acknowledged or validated, but one time something different happened. She was in a conversation where she said something that was on her mind, and the person she was with said, "Oh, and what else?" She was blown away to be asked to keep talking. That's so common. So she recommends, put that question, "Oh, and what else?" in your conversation toolkit and see what happens. Okay. So let's see, in some cases where our volunteers have tried out this approach, they have been surprised to find that at the end of the conversation, the person they are talking to suddenly wants to hear more about CCL's proposal. They're suddenly open to what we have to say. I think it's kind of good manners. After this person has let you talk and talk and talk, it's just good manners to give them a turn to talk. And they're ready to hear now. So that's what we've been really working toward, right? We've been working toward them being open, them being curious, and asking for the information. So much better than when we come in and just want to push it on them. I got excited, sorry. So now, and this is kind of a leap of faith. You have to go into that conversation trusting that that person will eventually get curious. So, it's a leap, but with practice you can do it. Okay. Oh, so we are going to practice now. So I would like everyone to find a partner. And one of you is going to interview and listen to the other about a topic. The topic can be anything that you both have an opinion about, and ideally one in which you do not agree. Some possible topics might be nuclear power, whether to call it a tax or a fee, or maybe the clean power plan. Those are just a few possibilities. Now, we're going to have 5 minutes for this exercise, okay? Yeah. Okay, I've had a request to repeat, so I'm sorry. I've had a request to repeat. Just a second. Thanks. Okay, yeah, let me go over it one more time. We're not starting yet. We're not starting yet. Okay. Thank you. Okay, sorry. So let me finish this paragraph. You'll have 5 minutes to do this. We won't switch roles. So the two of you need to decide who is the interviewer and who is the interviewee. Now, you're going to find a topic to talk about, and it could be anything. Those were just a few suggestions, nuclear power, clean power plan, whether to call it a tax or a fee. Those are just a few suggestions. Just find something that you can share for 5 minutes that you don't agree on. You'll have 5 minutes, and at the end, we're going to get some feedback on how it felt to be listened to that way, and what kind of questions worked and did not. Okay? Is that clear? Okay, so find a partner, and we'll start now. Okay, let's call that 5 minutes. Thank you. I know it's a lot of fun. Okay. Hello. Thank you. Clap. Excellent. Thank you. That's great. It is so fun to watch you all do this exercise. I cannot tell you. It is really fun. So I can tell you had fun. Does anybody want to share oh, somebody's very excited. What do you want to share? Please stand up and speak loudly.
The topic we chose was vegetarianism. I'm kind of an adamant vegetarian, and it was my first political move back in 1981 to go vegetarian. And I don't always start the conversation with that, but I met my new friend here, Rob, and asked him to talk about that. And so he very conscientiously said, well, I'm a foodie, and I am conscientious about my food, and I do a good job with my cooking, and I noticed that I'm eating less beef. And then we talked about where he lives, and then he started to ask me, like, so why are you so interested in vegetarianism? And I think it was this beautiful switch of him being able to start to have an interest in why I was such an interest in vegetarianism, and then the 5-minute gong bell went off. It was great because I didn't push my agenda, but he showed a lot of interest in what I was doing. And I'm so glad to meet my new friend, Rob.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Any favorite questions that really drew out? Okay, I've got you.
So my name's Kyle. I'm from Wisconsin. And Dave. Yeah, I met my new friend Dave here. And the cool thing about Dave was that he was very interested and engaged in what I was saying. And after I said what I had to say, he gathered and tried to summarize where it was I was coming from, trying to understand my point. So instead of trying to reverberate what his agenda was and kind of going back to softening the agenda and not necessarily getting the points across, instead of doing that, he was really interested in where I was coming from, what I had to say, why I was saying that, and what made me say what I had to say.
Yeah, and how did that make you feel to be interviewed?
I feel like he was genuinely interested, and I think that in a world where we're staring at a screen all the time, we really genuinely long for that face-to-face interaction and that longing for compassion and genuine caring for what people are saying. So if it works here, I think it can work in Congress.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. That's wonderful. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about values next, because really acknowledging someone's values really makes them feel heard, and that's the first step toward building a connection. Now, I have 2 volunteers. Could you please come up, because we're going to do a little role play. And this is something that actually happened at a tabling event in Billings, Montana. So we've got Max and Sandy. You'll have to take turns speaking into the microphone. And thank you for doing this.
I think you go first.
Set it up. You're the W person.
Okay, did you?
Oh, am I? No, just go ahead and go straight in. Okay.
You probably don't want to talk to me. I don't believe in global warming.
Not at all. We're delighted to visit with you. Thank you for coming over. Are you having a good time?
Yes, I shop here all the time. It's a beautiful day.
What do you like best about the fair?
I wanted to know more about composting. Probably learned too much about it today.
Would you like to know anything about what we're doing?
I'm a conservative. I'm against climate change action, so you won't like what I have to say.
Actually, we do. We want to understand better people who don't agree with us. If you have time...
Well, I have a few minutes.
Yes. Oh, so you're against action on climate change?
Yes. First off, wind and solar are not cost-effective and can't really meet our energy needs. We need our oil. We're being lied to. It's a matter of accountability and trust. I don't trust all these things they say. Thank you for listening, by the way. You are kind of different from other environmentalists.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. So trust and accountability are important to you.
Sure are. And those hypocrites like Al Gore, using climate change for political purposes, all the time spending money on private planes and his big houses.
Sounds like integrity is a priority for you.
Sure is.
Well, thank you for talking to 2 doctors and a counselor. Integrity is a priority for us, which is why we're volunteering for this organization, Citizens Climate Lobby. We like their integrity.
Can they do alternative energy in a practical and cost-efficient way?
Thank you. Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry about that, Sandy. Thank you very much, Sandy. So wasn't that great? Yeah, it really works. Okay. So we're still collecting evidence, but it does seem like at some point in the conversation, the person will say, you're a little different from people that I usually talk to. And at some point, after you've drawn them out, we saw him ask his own question. He wanted to hear what the CCL volunteer side of the story was. So that's a great example. The Billings people are just blowing us away, so thank you. Okay, so we talked about the bonding, finding something. When this could be a staffer you're talking to, it could be the member, if you have a face-to-face, it could be your neighbor next door. What is it that you have in common? Find something to break the ice, and then work on making that connection to draw them out and find the issue that's going to be the bridge for you and them to have a genuine conversation about climate change. Okay, so now we're going to do one more practice, and we're going to get back with our partners, and we're going to see if we can have an exchange like the Billings volunteers did, okay? But I'm going to tell you the issue this time, and here's what you're going to pretend you were just saying. I don't feel as urgent as you do about climate change. I think we are going to invent the things we need to adapt, and we'll survive and head it off. Most of the bad things you say are going to happen haven't happened. How do you respond in a way that affirms the underlying value? Go. I ought to ask you. Are you going to have a chance to speak to the whole group again?
Probably why?
Because we're finding that nobody's reading the piece of paper about the magnet and people's hotel room keys. We're already getting to... You're welcome. Thank you. switch partners, switch roles. Okay. Let's get some feedback on how that went. Anybody want to share? Somebody new? Great. Okay. Let's hear how that went. Oh, just a sec. Thank you.
I've noticed in both interactions, even though I think that I'm a good listener, I'm just like, I want to get to the bullet points. I want to find out, why do you think that? Give me those facts. I want to hear the facts so I can analyze them. And it's been interesting to be like, oh, I'm a good listener, and then I'm not getting to the values. So those just easy questions of just everyday conversation. Just trying to apply those into these getting past this bullet point and those factual things and get how they're feeling. So
excellent. Did anybody have a breakthrough during this little session? Yes.
I don't know if it's a breakthrough, but it kind of brings on what you were saying.
Okay.
When you get into the emotion of it, and get into, hey, we have a positive solution. The listener changes their body language and they come towards you. Facts, maybe not. Put that to the side. But hey, this is great.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. I'll share with you Madeline's practice response. She says, after listening to the person make that statement, "It sounds like you have a lot of faith in humanity's ability to solve problems. Is that right? And you don't like exaggeration. You like for things to be factual. How much of a problem do you think there is, based on what you have been able to learn about climate change?" That is another way. Thank you. So, anyone want to share another thought about how this might relate to lobbying on Tuesday, or even talking to your neighbor?
Have Madeline in your group.
Yeah, I know. She's a master. Yes, ma'am.
The thing that I've been working really hard on is asking questions rather than making statements. So I just feel like every single encounter, everything has to be a question. And that way I'm not putting, it keeps me out of that mode of wondering.
Yeah. Perfect, perfect, perfect. This is all great. So now this is not an absolute set of rules.
Could you repeat what she said?
She said that, well, you said it better.
I try to just ask questions.
Just trying to ask questions. And then, getting used to asking the questions. And that's the thing to practice. And practice on your dog. They're really good listeners. Okay. So as I was starting to say, this is not a set of rules. Everyone has their own style. We're not saying never provide information, because the questions will come up, and you do want to be ready and have a little bit of laser talk, phrasing ready to go. But we are really just saying that being human, we probably don't listen as long as we should for this kind of situation. And so with practice, you'll get better at it. Give up the need to jump in and answer back. We're suggesting that by putting more time on activating their thinking and them connecting with their value as they're talking about it, we'll get better results. So we wish you the best with all of that. Now, we're almost out of time, so I just have a last... We have a wonderful volunteer who's writing a blog called Davia Rivka, and she put this into a metaphor that's just beautiful from her blog, Flying with the Geese. My friend Liza says engaging people in a conversation about climate change is like the California drought. The ground is so parched that the only way it can take in the water is slowly, 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 over time. The ground needs to soften before it can even begin to absorb anything. The predicted El Niño storms will not reverse the drought. They might even make things worse. Most of the water will flood backyards and streets and run off into the storm drains. Liza says we can't deluge people with information. First, soften the ground. If I am like El Niño, raining down buckets of information, my words will run off into the storm drain. Slowly, slowly, slowly soften the ground. Thank you, Liza, and thank you.